Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. I like to cover from time to time the complete ignorance, tone deafness, elitism, arrogance, and all out insanity of corporate media, particularly the disconnect between the millionaires that drape corporate media and working people. Well, the following Morning Joe clip might actually belong in the Hall of Fame and be the creme de la creme of insanity, arrogance, elitism, and all out ridiculousness. Wait till you hear what Morning Joe, who is melting down over the grave threat of Trump being reelected, and indeed, there are certainly real threats that come with Trump being reelected, but wait till you hear what they are most worried about. I will stop and start to comment on this ignorance and insanity.
The fact that these Republicans think they can do all of these things that damage constitutional norms and political norms and it's not going to come back and haunt them later really shows how ignorant they are.
The ignorance comes down to a simple thought, and I think the vice president's answer about what she wakes up about, what she wakes up in the morning thinks about democracy is the thing we all should be thinking about.
And by the way, that wasn't supposed to be a big issue in 22. It ended up being a big issue in 22.
Yes, of course, working people who are working two jobs, do not have more than $400 in the bank for an emergency, are choosing between the electric bill or medicine for your kids, groceries, or, the student loan payment that's about to resume in October, rationing insulin. 61% of Americans are working paycheck to paycheck. Of course, working class people share Donnie Deutsch, infamous advertising executive, net worth of $200 million. Still don't know why he has a perennial spot on Morning Joe. Of course, they share his top concern when he wakes up in the morning of the grave threat to the non-existent democracy that we don't have because we live in the United Corporations of America behind me, and our government has been purchased, and the popular vote does not actually elect presidents. You cannot make up this tone deafness and ignorance. Now, theoretically, if we had a democracy, has it been attacked over the last few years, particularly by Trump? Absolutely. But these people think that the top concern among workers is democracy. Let's keep going.
No mistake about it. And this is why I get so enraged with not the far right fringe, but the Republican, the establishment Republicans. Right. Do you not understand that if Donald Trump wins, nothing else matters because it's over? Morning Joe might act, just to take a little example, Morning Joe might not exist anymore because Donald Trump has said, as all autocrats say, what they will do. And he said, if I'm elected, I want the FCC reporting directly into me. And he will cancel the show. I mean, you need to think that, excuse me, that extreme. It's over. Freedom is over if Donald Trump gets elected. It's that simple. No other issue matters. Every other issue sprinkles down from that. However you feel about the economy, however you feel about whatever issue you're dealing with, we turn into an autocracy. What our forefathers fought for 250 years ago is over. That's what's at stake at this election. Everything else is a subtext to that.
Freedom is over if Donald Trump gets reelected. And threat number one, Donald Trump will cancel Morning Joe. Tell you the truth, not so bad. Not so sure that would be a bad thing. I kid. Obviously, we don't want presidents seizing cable news or, the media and canceling shows they don't like and keeping the ones they do. Frankly, I would like the FCC to cancel the corporate hijacking of the media and throw it back to public ownership of the media. But what's amazing is his top concern when he wakes up is democracy, which we don't have. And the biggest threat of a Trump reelection is canceling this elitist cocktail hour in the morning. Not per se, the actual threats like Trump, trying to change laws of the Constitution to concentrate power in the executive branch, taking power away from Congress or the judiciary, which he's already said he would love to do. Not Trump, even though he's kind of playing down abortion because he knows it's not an electoral winner and the majority of the country is pro-choice, but not Trump, if reelected, trying to ram through some type of national abortion ban. Not Trump, further criminalizing transgenderism and attacking transgender people, trying to criminalize or strip away protections from them or health care. Not Trump partnering with Clarence Thomas when he's not busy taking lavish trips paid for by billionaires. That Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who's already indicated he wants to revisit the gay marriage ruling, not Trump, further going after LGBTQ rights, not Trump doing another massive tax cut plus deregulation, transferring wealth from us, giving it to the wealthy. Not Trump further loosening gun laws as we have mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Not Trump, continuing on or creating a brand new, even worse child separation policy at the border. Or, not the actual number one threat of Trump, or frankly, any president that doesn't actually do something, of saving planet Earth as the climate further burns to the ground. As we speak, 55 dead in Maui, in Hawaii, which is a awful, awful scene. As we've seen the extreme heat all over this country, all over the globe this summer, record temperatures. You have mass storms in places that normally don't get those storms, wildfires out of control, temperatures that are uninhabitable to be outside for long times. Antarctica having events happen that happen only once every 13 billion years. Ice caps melting in Greenland. I could go on. That's not the gravest threat, where you would have a president reelected who literally does not believe in climate change. Not that Biden isn't a threat, because he's doing jack shit. Actually, he's doing worse. He's continuing on and doubling drilling on public lands when he ran on ending drilling on public lands. But notice, none of those things were mentioned as a threat of Trump being reelected. It was all sacred democracy. It's all Trump seizing the FCC and canceling Morning Joe. Honestly, you don't really expect sharp, authentic, interesting, informative analysis or information coming from these shows. But it's very illuminating what people that get paid millions of dollars inexplicably care about, and how disconnected they are. By the way, he's worth $200 million, Donnie Deutsch. How disconnected they are from what actual people are going through. It's really a shame that this is how the masses get their information, and that this is how the most consistent voters in America, frankly, the baby boomers, get their information. Let me play the rest.
I mean, you look at what's happening in Hungary. You look what's happened with Orban. Orban didn't take the broadcasters out that opposed him, lined them up against the wall and shot him. No, he just regulated them out of business. What's Donald Trump done? He's looked at what Orban's doing. He said, okay, I'm going to have control of the FCC so I can decide what shows are on TV and what shows are not on TV. I have liberals all the time saying you need to push to have Fox News, like get the FCC to investigate this and get the FCC to investigate that. It doesn't work that way in America. It doesn't work that way, at least in this America, but that's how Donald Trump wants it to work in his America.
So make no mistake about it, that would be a real threat if Trump tried to hijack the cable news, corporate media. But to be honest, they don't seem so concerned with the actual threat to the information airwaves, which is corporations hijacking the information systems, which Bill Clinton, through his Telecommunications Act of 1996, helped facilitate. They don't seem to think that's a threat, with our media and information systems literally being corporatized so that we have no actual coverage, real coverage that is anti-war. We don't have actual progressive, socialist, anti-war voices on there, anti-capitalist voices. We don't barely have a the fairness doctrine that would allot equal time to candidates. We basically just have nonstop propaganda and public relations masquerading as journalism because multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates have purchased all the media in this country. That's not a worry because they're enjoying it and they benefit from it. And also, it's illuminating that they only seem to think a certain form of authoritarianism and fascism is a threat, but not the fascism and authoritarianism that exists right now. You ever hear about Cop City mentioned on Morning Joe, where literally democratically controlled Atlanta with a Democratic mayor, Georgia, which has 2 Democratic senators, is literally cutting down hundreds of acres of a forest to put down a militarized police compound right next to a predominantly black community that doesn't want it, so they could put massive gun ranges, helipads down there. They're actually going to be cross-training with the Israeli Mossad by some reports. The Georgia police shot an environmental protester who was peaceful. They covered it up. They pretended that Tortuguita, the environmental protester, had shot at them first, but independent autopsy showed that Tortuguita was struck 57 times, had 57 wounds, and the autopsy shows that they were seated with their hands up at the time of being assassinated by the police. That's not authoritarianism. That's not fascism to them. They don't have a problem with nonviolent environmental activists literally getting charged with domestic terrorism in Georgia for protesting Cop City over domestic terrorism like possessing flares or actually being part of the protest or running from police that just shot and killed an environmental protester. They're being charged with domestic terrorism and being held for weeks at a time. They don't seem to think it's fascist for, I don't know, oil pipelines to be going through Native American reservations like Standing Rock, and the police to be shooting at nonviolent indigenous people who are banging on drums for the crime of chanting, singing, banging on drums to try and stop a pipeline from going through their reservation and their ancestral burial grounds. That's not authoritarianism. That's not fascism when the police are working at the behest of an oil company. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's so much fascism and authoritarianism going on in this country. We just interviewed a group, Food Not Bombs, that literally have nearly $100,000 in fines from the city of Houston for the crime of handing out food for the homeless. Never quite see these threats to democracy or examples of fascism mentioned on Morning Joe, do you? This is why it is very, very important to support actual independent media that covers the real stories rather than these ghouls who cover it all up. We are on the ground, not just in the studio. Reminder, we're going back to East Palestine. My colleague Louis DeAngelis is making his 4th reporting trip there next week. If you have $5 to $10 a month, on the ground reporting with the people is expensive. Hotels, flights, rent a car, gas in the car, hotels. Please support us, statuscoup.com/join. Like I said, if there is a massive United Auto Workers strike in September, we will be on the ground for it. And we're also covering other things like the nurses strike we covered this week, which is up on the channel. Join us, statuscoup.com/join. $5 a month equals 16 cents a day. $10 a month equals 33 cents a day. We can't do it without you. And we're certainly not taking money from the sponsors who sponsor Morning Joe.